Hi everyone, I am going to go over Excel Module 3 textbook project to help you learn the concepts for this chapter. This chapter is titled Analyzing Data Using Formulas. So we've already learned about building formulas with operators and operands, and we've looked at some basic functions like sum, average, max, and min. So this chapter just goes on into a little bit more with formulas and functions. So I've already opened up the file. Remember, if you wanted to do this exercise, this is not a graded assignment for our class, but if you wanted to do this, you can download the data files that go with the textbook from the top section of the Canvas modules. So the first thing it asks us to do is to select the range B3 through E12. So I'm going to select the data B3 through E12, all of this quarterly data information. And when I've selected that, I get this little quick analysis tool button. Remember, this is just an option. This is not a fill options smart tag that you might see when you're using the fill handle. This is just a quick way to apply different types of formatting or formulas. They're organized into these tabs at the top, so formatting, charts, totals, and so on. So we're going to go over here to totals. And then you can see right here, it's showing me an option. So it looks like so when you click on that quick analysis tool and you go to totals, this sum is putting them in the bottom, but you can see, look at B13, that's got this gigantic percentage because we don't want that in that position there. That cell has been formatted as a percent. So I need to come over here where I see the gold shaded part. This means I want to put a total to the right of the selected data, which we already have a blank column to put the total for the year. So I'll go ahead and click on that button. So just always make sure that you're looking very carefully to see whether it's going to sum up each column and put the totals below, or am I summing up the rows and putting the totals to the right? Next thing I'm going to do is select cell H3 and put in a formula to calculate the percent increase from between this current year, where we have our totals in column F, and the previous year's revenue. We did a similar formula like this in the last chapter. So I'm going to build a formula using operators and operands. I'll start by typing in the equal sign. I'm going to need to put this in parentheses because I want to subtract F3 from minus G3, close parentheses. I want that subtraction performed first, and then I will divide that by G3. I'll press enter. And you can see it's showing it to me in a decimal. That would be the default in Excel. I want to show this as a percent, so I'll click on the percent style button. We would like to show 2 decimal places, so I'll click my increase decimal button 2 times to show 2 decimal places. Now I can drag the fill handle to copy that formula down, or you can double click the fill handle, click, click. And you'll notice that it did fill in, but why did it go down here? Well, the reason why it continued down here is because I have data in rows 13 through 15. I just wanted to show you if that's a trick that you like to use. Sometimes it's not exactly right because it thinks that it's supposed to continue the calculations because of data that it finds in those rows. Now, if I undo that, the other way is I could have just clicked and dragged down to row 12, or you could have just deleted the other divide by 0 errors that you saw in the other cells. Okay, continuing on with this exercise, the next thing has to do with using the logical function if. Now, if may seem like a complicated function, but it is actually very simple. It's made up of, within the function argument, the logical test. That's basically the question that you're asking with the word if. And then what do you want to go in the cell if that's true, if that test is true? And what do you want to go in the cell if the test is false? So in this case, in this exercise, we're going to calculate whether or not each location met or missed its revenue target for the year. So it's going to be based on the annual increase and also based on the target percent increase. So the target is for each location to increase at least 15% from the previous year. So we've already calculated the percent increase from this year to the previous year. And then in column I, we wanted to show the word either missed or met if it met that minimum increase that we are expecting, the target. So here I want to put in the if function. Now we already know that we can go to fx and look it up. It's one of the logical functions. If you were going to go to formulas and you want to find it in the category, it would be in logical. But if I start typing in equal if, as soon as you see it, you can simply double click on that function name. Now, here you can see here it shows me in parentheses the different parts of the function argument. Logical test, value of true, and value of false. Logical test is coming in bold because that's the step I'm in right now. Until I type a comma, it won't think that I'm entering the value if true, or what I want to be in the cell if the logical test is true. What I recommend with these complicated functions is even if you use this method where you started typing it in and you double click to enter it, click on the FX button once you've started the function, because the function argument dialog box is a lot easier to work with in terms of putting in the argument correctly. And there's some additional information that might be helpful. So here I am in the logical test box. And so what is the test? I'm testing to see whether this value in H3 is greater than the value in B13. So I'm going to type the greater than symbol and then B13. Now, before we continue on, let's think about, do we need to have an absolute reference? H13 is the percent increase for New York. When I copy the formula down, I wanted to change to, H3, to H4, H5, H6, and so on for the other cities. But B13, the target percent increase, absolutely exists only in B13. So when I copy the formula, I do not want that to change. So I'm going to press the F4 function key at the top of my keyboard to put in the $ in front of the column letter and the row number. You could also just type $B, $13. The F4 key is not some magical key. It just puts the $ in for you. Now you can see I'm already getting the result is true because it's 75.41%. It is way greater than 15%. Now, whenever you're in the function argument dialog box, when there are additional boxes, whatever is written in bold, you have to put something there. So we have to put a logical test. The reason why value of true and value of false are not in bold, however, is because if you leave those blanks, you will get the words true or false in the cell. So sometimes maybe that is all you need, the words true or false. But we want to have the words missed and met. So if it's true, I'm going to click on this box. Then I'm going to enter the text in all caps, met. And then I'll press my tab key to go down to the next box and I'll type missed. Now it's hard for you to see because it's so tiny, but it's putting them in quotation marks. In old versions of Excel, you had to type the quotation marks. In fact, if I click up here, you can see it puts this in quotation marks too. You didn't have to click up there first. It'll put them in when you click OK. But some people who are old Excel users are just so used to typing the text in quotes that they do it anyway. But it is important for you to notice that it is. Don't get rid of that or it won't work. So now I can see it's going to show my formula result when I enter this or click OK. It's going to say met because New York met the minimum target increase of 15%. So I'll click OK, and then I'll use my fill handle to copy down to the others. And so you can see the ones that are below, that are missed, are below 15. See? I just have a few there that are below 15%. And so that is the if function. Now you can also have nested if functions where you have if inside of if, and I know that's in one of your homework assignments, and we'll take a look at that later. All right, moving on. The next is about using another logical function called AND. And AND is similar, but you can choose if you need to have two things met, or if I wanted it to be greater than 15% and have a total of greater than 100,000. Okay, if it both of those. So looking at the year revenue, if I needed both of those to be met, I can use the AND function and even have that nested inside of an if function. So we're going to go to L3 for their bonus. So what we want to do is determine which offices met their revenue goal and see which offices are eligible for a bonus to see if they meet the requirements for a bonus. So here we're going to start by putting in the AND function. So I could go to logical here on the formulas ribbon and just put in AND. You could have also started typing equal AND. Now you'll notice this time though, I didn't have to click on the FX button, because when you choose a function from the library here, or if you clicked FX and search for it, it will always go to the function argument dialog box. So what are the two things that we are looking for? First, we want to know whether J3 is greater than or equal to K3. So I'm going to move this out of my way a little bit here. And I'll click on J3. And then is it greater than or equal to? You just put those comparison operators right side by side. And then K3. So I have the number of filled positions at that location and the filled positions quota, the number that I need. Okay. So that is our first logical test for the AND function. The other thing required for a bonus is that their year revenue target has to be met. So I'm going to click in the second logical box, click on I3. I know it looks like 13, but it's I3. And then that needs to equal, and then in quotation marks, oops, met. So with the AND function, you see that this first one is false, but the next one is true, but my answer is coming up as false. That's because both conditions must be true in order to return the word true. Now with AND all by itself, all you can get is true or false. If I wanted something else, like yes for a bonus or no, I would need to nest the AND function inside of an if function. Otherwise, all I'm going to get is true or false. If both are true, you'll get true. If both are false, you'll get false. If one is false, you'll get false as the answer. Now, I do want to double check and make sure, is there anything here that needs to be absolute reference? No. All of these refer specifically to the row 3 for New York, so I would want all three of these, J, K, and I3, to change to the other rows. So I'll go ahead and click OK. Go back to that cell and use my fill handle. So let's look at one of the ones that's true. This one, the filled positions is far greater than the quota, and the year target was met. So both of those conditions are true, so my AND function result is true. The textbook shows you some other logical functions and some examples how you might use those. OR is similar to AND The only thing is, in order for it to return true, only one condition needs to be true, not both. And it has to be both. And then you can take a look at some of the others there. The next thing we're going to look at is the round function. So I'm going to go to cell B15. And I'm first going to put in the average for cells F3 through F12. So I'm going to go back to the home. Well, I don't have to go to the home ribbon. I can click this drop down arrow right here on the formulas ribbon. I get the same options there. I'll put in average. It's putting in the wrong references. I want F3 through F12. So I'm going to just take my mouse and drag through F3 through F12, and it replaces that information. Okay. So just to see what that looks like now, if I click the check mark here, you can see the result that I'm getting. Now, if I don't want any decimal places, I could just simply go to my home ribbon and use my decrease decimal button. But they want us to round it to 0 decimal places. So I'm going to click in front of the A in average. I'm going to type the word round, and you can even double click on it when you see it here. So you can see here are the parts of the function argument for round. You can also click on FX if you want to step into the function. And so right now we're seeing that I'm inside of the average function. No, I want to look at the round function, so I'm going to click my mouse on the word round. And so now the number that I'm rounding is actually the average of F3 through F12. How many digits do I want to round it to? I'm going to choose 0. And so now I can see that's just getting rid of the 0.4. So this is probably not the best example of using this because we could have just used the decrease decimal button, but I'll go ahead and click OK. And so that's the round function. We're moving on now to another category of functions in the statistical category. So the one that we're going to use is called count A. There is a count function, but count A is used to count up cells that contain text. So it says in our worksheet, you want to calculate the number of offices in the North American region. You also want to format some worksheet values using a custom format so that the data looks exactly the way you want. So that's what we're doing in this next step. Now, if I just wanted to count up, then I can see I have continuous rows. I could count up the numbers that are in column D, for example. But if I'm going to count up the number of regions using A3 through A12, then I have to use count A because that contains text. We're going to put this result in cell B14, where it says number of NA or North American offices. I'm just going to start typing it in. Remember, you can always go to formulas and go to the right category or go to more functions or FX and look it up. If you know the name of the function, you can just start typing it in. So there's count A. Notice count says count the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. Count A says count the number of cells in a range that are not empty, so it can contain text. So I'll double click on count A, and then I'll step into the dialog box by clicking on FX. So what are the values that I'm going to count up? I'm going to use A3 through A12. Notice I have a value 2 box. I don't need to use that because I've put the range of cells in that one cell. And it's showing me the result is 10. There are 10 locations. So I'll click OK. And there's the result. The next step in the exercise is to apply a custom number format to the data in cells H3 through H12. So I'll start by selecting those cells. I'll go back to my home ribbon. And I'm going to click the dialog box launcher in the bottom right corner of the number group. although I could have clicked on many other dialog box launchers to go to the same format cells dialog box. So I can see it's already in the percentage style, but I want to do something custom. So I'm going to go down here to custom. And right now it's showing me the current formatting for these cells, 0.00%, so 2 decimal places with a percent sign. I'm going to click right after the percent sign up here in the little type box, and I'm going to add on a semicolon and then a open square bracket, followed by the word red, close square bracket, and then in parentheses 0.00% and close parentheses. Oops, I had my cap locks key on. I don't think that would cause a problem, but let me just type it in this way. So you can see some other examples that have red in brackets. There's other colors you can type in, blue, green, magenta. There's a lot of colors that can be typed in that the program can recognize by name. So this is saying if it's a positive, put 2 decimal places just in black. But if it's negative, we want it to be in red and in parentheses. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And there you can see the ones that are negatives now stand out a lot more. So that is, I could have used conditional formatting and said if it was less than 0, put it in red font. That's another option. We did that in the previous chapter. But this is another option too in using custom number formats. Next, we'll select the range B3 through G12, all of this data. We're going to apply the accounting number format, that's the little $ symbol. And we'll get rid of all those zeros by decreasing the decimal button 2 times. Next, we'll take a look at date functions. In cell A2, we're going to use a function to enter the date rather than typing it in. Using functions for dates will allow them to update automatically based on the system date of your computer. So with this cell selected, let's take a look at formulas and go to the date and time category. I just want to show you there's so many options for date and time. Net work days international, because there's different holidays in other countries. So there's a lot of things that are used for calculating pay and based on work week. We're going to select the date function. So that's right here at the top. Oh, I apologize, not that one. And we're going to go down to today. So the today function, when you click on that, you'll notice that it does take me to the function argument dialog box, but there's nothing to type in. That's because it's volatile. It will change every day. The function still puts in the equal sign, the function name, and an open and close parentheses because that's the structure of every function, but nothing will go inside of the parentheses. You'll notice that it says returns the current date formatted as a date. Even though it's formatted as a date, we can still change the formatting of the way the date appears, or we can even change it to show the date and time if we want. The now function, however, if you know you want date and time, is the function to use, N-O-W. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And so now I've formatted this cell to contain the today function. Okay, so we put that in using the today function, and now the exercise says to delete that actually and try a different function. So we'll press delete. One thing I will point out, when I press my delete key, if I go back to the home ribbon, notice how the format is still date. Remember I told you if you needed to clear all of the formatting, you would go to clear. However, if I insert a function that has a different result other than a date, it would automatically change the formatting of that cell from date. So I'll go back to the Formulas tab and click on Date and Time, and this time they do want us to click on Date. And so in the year box, I'm going to type 2021. In the month box, you can press tab or use your mouth and go down there. I'll type in 2. And in the day box, I'm going to type in 24. So I'll go, it says day is a number from 1 to 31 representing the day of the month. So I'll click OK. And so you can see it puts that in the function format, but it's just putting in the date. This is not going to change like it would with the today function because I've put in specific date information. All right, with this still selected, I'm going to go back to the home ribbon and apply some formatting to this. I'm going to go to the cell styles group and choose 20% accent 1 to shade that and make it look a little different from the rest of the worksheet. In the textbook, there's a whole table that describes and gives some examples of the results of using different date and time functions, so you can look that over or play around with it and experiment with it. The next step in the exercise doesn't have anything to do with creating any type of formulas, but it's using the equation tools to display a formula or some type of calculation. So we're going to go to the formula documentations worksheet now. And then on the Insert tab, all the way over here in the symbol section on the far right, I'm going to click on the little equation arrow. And we're going to select the fraction option. So when you click on the equation button here, you can click right on the button. The Equation Tools Design ribbon tab opens. You'll also notice Drawing Tools because there are drawing shapes that can be part of this. But you can see we've got a lot of symbols that you may have used in some math or statistic classes. And I've got this fraction option here in the Structures group. So I'll click on Fraction. And then I want the stacked fraction, which you can see when I point to it, there's a screen tip. And it's hard to see here if I click in this upper box so that I have an insertion point up there. It'll widen as I type. They want me to type in parentheses year revenue minus previous year revenue, close parentheses. And then in the bottom box, click below, previous year revenue. So this is what we did on the other worksheet. And you can see you can resize that if needed to give yourself a little bit of room, and you can move it around. So we're going to move it over here. This is describing what we did in the other worksheet. So this can be helpful if you were showing someone how you did the calculations, although if they know how to use Excel and they're in Excel, they could just simply click on the cells and look at the formulas. But this is a nice tool, especially if you have a math class and you need to be able to show the calculations using some of those tools. If I click anywhere inside of this function, that Equation Tools Design ribbon tab will come back up. See, I'll click on that if you need to get back there. Because if I click on the border, you see how it goes away? So if you need to use that ribbon again, you have to click inside the area where you have typed in the formula. All right, so I just moved it in position. I'm not going to worry about getting it perfect. I know that some of these exercises, when you're asked to move things to specific positions, it's usually not that sensitive for grading, but if you have any issues with that, just let me know, and I can correct your grade. All right, the next thing is about controlling worksheet calculations. Everyone, never, ever, ever in the real world turn on manual calculations, but the book shows you how that can be done. I don't know why they even have it as an option. It just seems crazy because if I make any changes in my data, let me go back to this one. If I change the value in quarter one, I know that there are other things that are automatically going to change. Why would I want to have to remember to press a button or use an option on the screen to calculate it? But it mentions it in the book, so I'll show you where that is. So we're back on this worksheet. I'm going to switch to Backstage View by clicking on the File tab and going down to Options at the very bottom. Every program has this Options box, and it's very helpful to go and see what the things are that you might want to customize. Things like spell check, what is it checking for? Customizing the ribbon if you wanted to add commands that you use all the time. And some other options that would be used with some more advanced features of Excel. But if I go up here to formulas, you can see that workbook calculation is already set to automatic. I'm not even going to click on manual. I don't want to change it, but that is where you would change it. Well, I guess I have to in order to show you what they want you to do in the exercise. I wouldn't do this though unless you are following a step and it definitely tells you to change it back. So it says recalculate workbook before saving. At least that is helpful, that it will recalculate it when you save the document. So when you open it again, it would automatically calculate those figures. I'll go ahead and click OK. And so then it says to go to cell B3 and change the value to 34305. So I'm just going to change the last 3 digits. And when I press enter, I'm going to be looking at F3, G3, H3 to see if anything changes. Nothing changed at all. So now I'm going to go to the Formulas tab, and over here in the Calculation section, I'm going to click Calculate Now. Now remember, look at F3, G3, H3, and so now those numbers changed. So that's silly. Nobody needs to see what it would look like without changing the values. I'm going to go back to File, back down to Options, and then go back to Formulas and Automatic and click OK. So that's the end of this exercise. I know that there was a more challenging if function in one of the homework assignments with an if function nested inside of another. I may make a video of that exercise specifically just to help you, or just let me know if you have any questions.